hope you all joke on it.
See?
I made you rich.
Dad, please.
They just want me to trot out a load of drivel that'll make them sound nice. When the truth be known, they're a bunch of bloody hypocrites. My brother, a deadhead, would never have kept down a decent job if I hadn't propped him up. My nephew, a twit, takes after his father for being terminally boring. My sister-in-law is a sponging parasite. And my doctor is a trumped-up weasel posing as an entrepreneur. Look at you all, with your champagne and your party hats. When, let's face it, you were all hoping I wouldn't even make 50. Well, I did. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm still here. And I plan to be here for a very, very long time to come. And even when I'm dead, I'll still be watching you, Cliffy. I'll come back to haunt you. Thanks for coming. Hypocrites! Vincero, Vincero, la 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 la
Dad, it's 7:30. Dad? Dad? Dad?
Go ahead, Central 10. We have a deceased at this location. It appears suspicious. Could we have Central Detectives homicide and crime scene attend? Central 10, copy that.
Was murdered. Hands up. Gerard Galt was murdered.
That's it. Every call's the same. That's all it says. Gerard Galt was murdered.
When did he die?
Fortnight ago. No suspicious circumstances. He had a heart condition and he was a heavy smoker, so no one was particularly surprised. But since then, there's been a dozen calls exactly like this one to company directors, family solicitor, a couple of newspapers.
Is this him?
That's him, Gerard Galt, the youngest of the two Galt brothers. He recently floated the family company, made himself a small fortune and kept a majority share.
What does the company do?
Owns a string of nursing homes and a pharmaceutical chain. The family was with him on the night that he died, celebrating his birthday. A doctor, family friend, signed the death certificate.
Who called the police? Who taped the calls?
They did, the family.
My father was wonderful with his cactuses. Sorry, cacti. I can still hear him correcting me. If he'd had his way, there'd be no other plants on the property. What's this? I've heard it all now. Now, Dad's supposed to have been covering up a case of medical malpractice.
Really? Miss Gold, may I see that? That's right. Thank you very much. Gerard Gold had no conscience. Stark is a fraud, and he knew it. Stark, is he the doctor who signed the death certificate?
Yes.
Have you got a pen?
As if spreading the rumour my father was murdered wasn't enough. Now they're saying he deserved it. My aunt and uncle were down from the country for a company shareholders meeting when Dad died. They've been kind enough to stay on and help sort things out. That's their son, Rick. He's had to postpone his last economics exam at uni because of everything that's happened. He's a twitcher.
Sorry, a
Birdwatcher.
twitcher.
He's been mad about them ever since he was a kid. Watches birds, reads about birds, records their calls.
Alice, can you tell us who's the executor of your father's will?
I am.
Right, who are the beneficiaries?
We all are, including Dad's business partner, Dr. Stark.
You must be the detectives. My husband, Cliff's become acting chairman overnight, you see, so Dr. Stark is having to give him a crash course in company affairs.
I see. Mrs. Gold, is there any cause for your family to believe that your brother-in-law might have been murdered?
Well, he wasn't the easiest person to get along with, anyone can tell you that. But for someone to have murdered him, no. Absolutely not, it's ludicrous.
What happened on the night he died?
It was Gerard's 50th birthday. He was smoking and drinking like a madman. I told him he was smoking far too much. He's smoking far too much, Gerard.
All those years you sat around smoking 2 packets a day. Did I lecture you?
No, but I don't have a heart condition. You can't afford to smoke with the problems you've got.
Rubbish.
Dad, don't you think you've had enough to drink? We haven't even eaten yet.
This is supposed to be a party.
She worries about you, Gold, that's all.
Well, she shouldn't worry about me. You gave me the pills, and I take them like a good little boy.
Pills aren't a cure for angina. When I prescribed them, I told you I had to lose some weight, get more rest.
But how am I supposed to do it when I'm surrounded by a pack of dills like that?
Well, you could start by handing over some of your responsibilities to them.
I'll be pushing up daisies before that happens.
That could be sooner than you think.
Is that a threat? I mean, given your current predicament, do you think that's wise?
It's not a threat, it's a warning.
What's he mean? What's happened?
And don't change the subject, Gold. We're talking about your health.
But Gerard never listened to Dr. Stark. Oh, here they are, Dr. Charles Stark and my husband, Clifford Gold.
I believe you want to see my brother's room where he...
Yes, if we could.
Certainly. If you don't mind, I can't... I mean, I'd rather not.
Cliff's not quite up to it, I'm afraid. Charles, would you mind?
Yes, of course. Through here.
Why don't you take another pill, Cliff?
He was in here. He was slumped across the cacti just there. I didn't attempt CPR. There was no use. I knew it was a heart attack. The pills he took for his angina were still on his bedside table. He never got to them.
Any chance you might have missed something, Doctor?
No. Well, I mean, no, I don't think so.
Mr. Gold accused you of threatening him that night, sir.
I was warning him about his health, that was all. It didn't matter what anyone said to him that night. He was in one of those moods. He liked to play with people. All we want to do is discuss things.
Discuss? What's there to discuss?
The upcoming shareholders meeting. Who's to be appointed to the board for a start?
Lighten up, Clifford. You'll give yourself a bloody ulcer.
I'll get him one tomorrow, you can try it out.
Is this a private conversation about me? Or can anyone join in?
Madeline was just telling me about this plastic gadget you can put on your nose to stop you snoring.
Absolute magic. We haven't had a single sound out of Cliff since we discovered it.
Cliffy! What? Does it do wonders for your sex life, this plastic thing they stick up your nose?
I should be so lucky.
Oh, shut up, Madeline. Just keep out of it.
Oh, that's right, Cliff. Run away. This is the man who wants to run my company.
He never knew when to stop, you see. Particularly after he'd had a few drinks. I have to admit, I was thrilled when Galt finally went to bed that night.
And did you see him at all after that?
No. Next time I saw him was in here, dead.
How would you describe your relationship to Mr. Gold?
Well, I was his doctor. And, well, I suppose I was a friend of sorts.
Were you not also one of the directors of a pharmaceutical chain that he established and manager of several nursing homes that company owned?
That's right, yes.
Dr. Stark, we have in our possession a letter sent to Alice Galt claiming that you and Gerard Galt were involved in some sort of medical malpractice. Would you like to comment on that, sir?
Well, I assure you I'd like to get to the bottom of this, too. I mean, apart from everything else, my professional reputation is at stake.
All this will do is lend credibility to the lies and innuendo. You shouldn't have called the police.
I had to do something.
People will see the police are involved and assume the rumours are true. If you think there's a loss of confidence in the company now, just wait till they get a whiff of this. Oh, it's not that we don't appreciate what you're trying to do.
We'll try and keep our inquiries discreet, Mrs. Gold. Alice, do you think we might have a list of all your father's ex-employees, please?
Sure.
Particularly anyone who was laid off or who might hold a grudge for any reason.
Hang on. This doesn't sound like discreet inquiries. Madeline's right. All this is going to do is confirm everyone's suspicions.
Okay, then, let's shortcut all this. Let's take a logical, scientific approach and prove once and for all that Uncle Gerard died of natural causes.
How?
We dig him up.
Oh, no.
Exhumation is an option.
And a pretty extreme one. You'd think he'd at least wait until we'd ruled out the most obvious.
Which is what?
Well, a disgruntled employee, huh? Or a competitor who wanted to see the share price drop.
You know, I think that could be why Rick wants to dig his uncle up. I mean, if the case is left unsolved, could hurt the company.
Yeah. Share market. You can leave me out of that one.
Now, look, it's very easy to disguise your voice, particularly over the phone, but I have managed to isolate one rather unusual background sound.
Gerard Galt was murdered.
Sounds like he's got something in his mouth.
Yeah, just forget the voice. Now, concentrate on the background sound. I'll refilter the voice later.
Gerard Galt was murdered.
Right, did you hear that?
Could be a radio or a television.
No.
Play it again.
Gerard Galt was murdered.
Is it a cuckoo clock?
It's a cuckoo clock. Very good.
There's a cuckoo clock in the Galt dining room. So that call could have been made from within the Galt house. Thank you. So whoever made that call was inside the house the night that Galt died. Someone in the family.
Or Stark.
But why make the phone calls anonymously?
Well, the caller was probably frightened that they'd be killed too.
Any possible motive for murder?
Everyone that was there that night was a beneficiary of the will. They all had something to gain.
Oh, what about this Dr. Stark? Now, could he have falsified the death certificate?
Well, he's sticking to his story that the deceased died of a heart attack.
And the letters the family received?
Well, we think the person who sent the letters had nothing to do with the phone calls. The letters allege some sort of professional misconduct by Stark on some business dealing he had going with the deceased.
We should dig him up.
This Dr. Stark, he signed the death certificate, insisted on being here.
Let's open him up. Release some of the gases. Here we go. Oh.
Ooh, the aftershave's worn off.
There's no apparent injuries that I can see. There's no stab wounds, no bruising. Let's get him back to the morgue.
But as you say, there are no wounds, no bruising. Nothing to suggest that I made a wrong call.
That's right, Doctor. But until I can get the body back to the morgue for a thorough examination...
Yes, of course.
Right, fellas, away we go. Yep.
Of course, we still have to wait for a final report from the pathologist, but the findings so far are consistent with a heart attack.
See, I told you we have nothing to worry about.
So far, what does that mean?
Well, it means tests will still have to be done to rule out foul play.
Tests?
What would be left to test? After almost 3 weeks, everything would have disintegrated.
Well, not everything. The organs will still be pretty much intact.
You just have to look at what happens to bad meat, eh? Oh, look, Dad, we had to do it. We had no other choice. Otherwise, it just would have gone on and on. Look, as far as I'm concerned, we should all just put that out of our minds and move on. We should concentrate on getting the company back on its feet. I think now is the time to start buying shares. Show our faith.
But, Rick, what with? I don't have the money from the estate yet.
None of us do.
Then borrow it. I mean, if I have money to buy shares, then you guys certainly do. Use the money that Dad got when the company was floated.
If the share price drops any lower, we'll lose everything.
You've been selling, haven't you? Rats leaving a sinking ship.
Let's see, drug screening results.
Yes, this is what caused his heart attack.
Nicotine. We know he's a smoker.
Yes, but there's more nicotine in his system than would be possible from just cigarette smoking.
Yeah, but how would you get that much nicotine into your system?
Well, he could have been a tobacco chewer, might have swallowed it, or his stomach contents.
There's nothing in his stomach contents to indicate that nicotine was ingested. I found it in the skin samples I took, along with some minute scraps of adhesive. You see these marks on his back? See the discoloured area there, and here?
What, these sort of circular ones?
Yes, there's 15 altogether.
They're nicotine patches.
There's no way he could have put them there himself. Being the size he is, being how drunk he was, he could never reach that area on his back. You add a heart condition to that much nicotine and... well, you have a recipe for disaster.
All right, Toots, thank you.
Thank you. So the caller was right. Gerard Galt was murdered.
Shareholders meeting. Cliff Galt was anxious about the shareholders meeting the week he died, remember?
Interesting to know what Galt had planned for the meeting.
Yeah.
Alice types up his speeches.
Dad gave me the tape of his speech just before the guests arrived for his birthday, and I typed it up later on that evening. Look, I have a right to know how my father died. You say that you found evidence that he was murdered. What is it? Who did it?
That's what we're trying to find out, Miss Galt.
Miss Galt, from what we can gather, there seems to have been some apprehension about the forthcoming shareholders meeting. Do you know why that might be?
Dad played his cards close to his chest.
Your Uncle Cliff seems particularly eager to have known what your father was planning for that meeting.
He wasn't the only one, Detective.
Everyone wanted to know. Why do we have to wait for the meeting? Surely you can discuss your intentions.
There's nothing to discuss, Madeleine. I'm at the helm, I make the decisions. The shareholders like my style. I'm a bully. They like bullies. Bullies make them feel secure.
Yeah, well, that's where you're wrong. The company would do better without you.
You've never done a day's work in your life. What makes you think you give me any advice that I even listen to? And ask nicely. Hello, my dear. You really know how to have yourself on, don't you, Madeline?
I beg your pardon.
Look, Uncle Gerald.
Oh, go and practice your bird calls. I'm talking to your mother. You only married Stiff Cliffy because I wouldn't have you.
That's absolutely not true.
Dad, please. People have come here
But
to
now
celebrate.
you spend all of your waking hours trying to get Stark here into the sack.
How dare you? Don't just sit there, Clifford. Say something.
What do you want me to say?
Not much chance of that, though, is there, Stark? Oh, didn't you know, girls? Stark here has decided to tie the knot. I can't get him to make a decision that involves anything above his waist lately. And as for you little twit, I'd rather hand the company over to a chimpanzee.
I won't have you speak to Richard like that. He topped his economics course last year, which is more than anyone else here has done.
The lioness roars, Cliffy.
All I wanted was for the family to get together and be civil for one night. God, I hated him then. I know it's a terrible thing to say, but I could have hit him that night.
After your father left the table, what happened?
Everyone went to bed. I cleaned up and then went to my room. Dad was snoring, so I knew I wouldn't get any sleep. So I stayed up typing his speech until about 3 a.m.
Did you hear or see anything unusual between the party breaking up and 3 a.m?
At one point, Rick knocked on my door and said that he was going to sleep out in the gazebo. He couldn't stand the snoring anymore.
Do you know if your father was ever prescribed nicotine patches?
I don't think so. Dad never seriously tried to give up smoking. Madeline suggested patches once, but Dr. Stark said that he couldn't use them because of his angina.
Really?
Yes, Gerard's snoring went on for hours. It was abysmal. Huh? Cliff was just as bad before we found a cure. Anyway, I had to wake Dr. Stark for some sleeping tablets.
What time was that, Mrs. Gold?
About 1:30 in the morning.
Did the tablets work?
Yes, last time I looked at the clock it was 2 a.m. and then it was morning and Alice was screaming.
Mrs. Galt, have you ever tried nicotine patches?
I've been trying to give up for months. It isn't easy.
Did you have any with you the night Gerard died?
Yes, I had a box with me, I think.
And do you remember how many you had left in that box?
Goodness, I don't know, I don't know.
I understand there was some tension between your wife and your brother at dinner that evening.
Oh, they locked horns a few times, but they were always at each other, those two.
Was there any reason for the argument on this occasion?
Madeline was pushing to get Rick on the board. Madeline does that every time we go to Gerard's, and every time Gerard gets the better of her.
What Madeline doesn't realise is that Rick is perfectly capable of looking after himself.
I think what Mum is trying to say is that perhaps one of those positions could be filled by me. I mean, you appoint Stark, a failed GP who wouldn't know a sound investment if he fell over it, and you won't even consider your own nephew. Whether you like it or not, one of these days you will hear what I have to say.
Look at my tie. At last, someone else in the family was bald.
I won't let you do to me what you did to my father.
That's it, Rick. In there, keep fighting.
Well?
Well, what?
What about the appointment?
We've got a snowball's chance in hell. Pass the gravy, will you, please, Cliffy?
And how did your son react to that?
Oh, Rick's a great sulker. he takes after his mother in that.
What happened then?
Well, then Gerard got more drunk and more obnoxious until finally he abused us all and then went to bed. And then he kept us awake with that horrible snoring. He was much worse than I was with the snoring, but he'd deny that, of course, until he was blue in the face.
You had an argument with your uncle that night, is that right?
Yeah, but I wasn't the only one. Dr. Stark got so fed up arguing with him, he tried to leave.
If you don't mind, I'll say goodnight.
You're not driving home, surely? I mean, a doctor booked for DUI wouldn't look very good, would it?
I've had, 6 drinks in,
2 hours. I think you'd be over the limit. Sleep in the spare room. The bed's made.
Maybe Alice would like to tuck you in.
Here we are.
Good God almighty!
Weight loss program. Come on, everyone. Get into the spirit of things. Come on, put it on.
Billy, I'll call it a night.
Sit down. I said, sit down.
And did Dr. Stark stay?
Of course. Once Uncle Gerard got something into his mind, it was very hard to argue.
Let me explain.
Have you ever heard of the Australian busted bird detective? That's busted, not bastard.
No, I don't think I have.
Horrible bird, arrogant, aggressive, territorial, ugly as well. My uncle was like that, but that's bastard, not busted.
I see. Rick, Alice told us that you slept in the gazebo that night. Is that true?
The pool house? Yes, I did.
Did you see anyone else?
I saw Alice come out onto her balcony a few times. She must have been driven crazy by the snoring as well.
And did you go inside the house at all that night?
No.
Did you see or hear anything strange?
Not a thing.
Righto, I'm onto it.
Hey, I've just listened to that speech that Galt was going to give both shareholders.
Yeah, look, don't worry about that.
Who's that?
That guy in there, he used to work for the pharmaceutical company. He's the one who sent the letters about Galt's business activities. We've got him, Tessa.
We've got who?
Stark. My guess is he killed Galt to protect himself. Dr. Stark, you were involved in the testing and marketing of a drug called Benedoxine through Gerard Galt's pharmaceutical company. Is that correct?
That's right.
Well, according to information I have here, a person died as a direct result of taking that drug.
He was a very sick man.
I'll bet he was. There have also been calls for an investigation into the test results for Benedoxine before its release. Allegations that you falsified the records to get the drug onto the market quicker. If the press got hold of that, sir, your career would be ruined, wouldn't it?
Is that what Mr. Galt was referring to on the night of his death when he talked about your predicament?
I should have known better than to trust him. Well, he was very good at keeping his own hands clean, you know.
In what respect?
Well, he was only interested in the money, getting the drug onto the market as soon as possible. He forced me into rushing the drug testing and the results, and he held it over my head. But I didn't kill him.
He also knew that a large dose of nicotine could induce a fatal heart attack in the deceased.
Still, it's all circumstantial evidence at this stage, isn't it? Until we find out who made those calls alerting us to the murder, we're dancing in the dark.
Better dance a bit faster, guys.
Dee, could you take those interview tapes up to Fisk?
G'day. It's the detectives. I've identified our anonymous caller.
Yep.
Really?
Yes. This was a speech made by the deceased, correct?
Mm-hmm. This was the speech he was intending to give to the company's shareholders meeting.
Right. Well, that's a match for our mystery caller.
What?
Are you saying that the caller claiming that Galt was murdered was Galt?
Gerard Galt himself. Voice from the grave, you might say.
spooky.
Gerard Galt was murdered. Gerard Galt was murdered.
Why would he make a tape telling people he'd been murdered in the past tense? If you thought you were going to be killed, you'd go to the police, wouldn't you?
Maybe it's not a speech that he made live. I mean, maybe it's a speech he dictated to Alice for typing up.
In which case, she'd be the mystery caller.
No, not necessarily. There was a box of tapes in the victim's room. I mean, anyone could walk in and get a tape if they'd heard the speech and they knew the line they were looking for. Alice, when you were recording your father's dictation, did you always do it on this same brand of tape?
Yes. But I don't understand. What have these got to do with anything?
We're not sure yet, Alice.
Do you use tapes in your Walkman?
Yeah, sure. Why?
Mrs. Galt, are you all right?
It's all been so confusing. I just felt a little dizzy, that's all.
Have a look. What's on the tape?
Oh, just bird calls. All of them. They all sound the same to me.
And then what about these?
Alice, why don't you get the detective some tea?
Do you always use this brand of tape?
Only when I don't buy them myself. These are all ones of Alice's that I just taped over.
Uh-huh. And do you have more of this brand at home?
Well, yeah, but Mum's right. You know, they're all just full of bird calls. You're not interested in those, are you?
Yeah, we are actually.
Tess, you want to swap?
What?
You want to swap? If I have to listen to one more rose-breasted cockatoo, I will scream.
You got the better deal, I promise you.
Oh, you think so?
I've listened to 2 hours of Galt's speeches. At least the red-breasted cockatoo doesn't try to be funny.
That's a rose-breasted cockatoo, and it's not trying to be funny, it's trying to be sexy.
You have been doing this too long. That's it.
As a young man, probably about 17 or so, I competed in a boxing match against the state champion. He was enormous. I was crazy to take him on. Anyway, the crowd was looking for blood. Gerard Galt would be murdered. Gerard Galt was murdered. He was beaten to a proverbial pulp.
Ooh.
Mother! Mother!
Got this, do?
You already got that.
Looks like it might be blood. All right, we've got one good, clear foot impression. We'll have to match it up against the families.
Talking twisted here. Seriously twisted.
You get the rest of the pot, thanks, Dee.
Sadistic. Not necessarily.
If she tried to scream, you'd use the closest thing to hand. The pot to silence her and then the cactus to choke her.
Dear God Almighty. Who would do something like that?
What I don't understand is why. Why would someone want to kill Madeline?
Well, they may have thought that she knew something. We think it's possible that Madeline was the mystery caller, the one claiming that your father was murdered.
But I thought you said the caller was Gerard himself.
Well, what we think she may have done is used a tape recording of Gerard's voice. A line from a speech. There was a speech he made about a boxing competition he was in when he was young. Everyone knew he'd be beaten. Gerard Galt would be murdered, he said. Gerard Galt...
I remember the staff party.
Yes.
Yeah, but hang on, Madeline wasn't there.
I said we forget the business, forget the house, just pack up and get the hell out of here.
Uncle Cliff, I think...
Well, it's the only way we can get away from him.
Come on, Dad, I think you should go and have some
Well,
rest.
you heard what he said. He said he'd come back to haunt us, and now Madeline is dead.
Oh,
How
what
do you
saying?
explain that?
Well, he's coming back and picking us off one by one, is he?
Oh, she always hated her.
This is a nightmare. I can't believe any of it. I need air.
I need to lie down.
I'll be back.
Another tape.
He signed the death certificate and insisted on being here.
And then he kept us awake with that horrible snoring.
Cliff was just as bad until we found a cure.
Galt was still alive around 3.
That's why he was so cruel that night.
I just felt a little dizzy, that's all.
What the hell's that? What are you doing?
I'm playing the tape you made of your father snoring.
Any particular reason?
It's one of the old tapes that Alice gave you, like the one you were using when you came across one of Gerard's old speeches. You were the mystery caller, weren't you, Rick?
What? Yeah, all right, I made the call. I mean, that is, I made the tape with my uncle's voice. I was just trying to get the prices in the company to come down so that I could buy them cheap.
The only trouble was, your uncle really was murdered, wasn't he? Something you hadn't anticipated.
I thought we'd exhume the body, you know, prove the rumours wrong. The share prices would go back up. That's why I wanted you all to buy. I was trying to save what Uncle Jared had spent years of his life building up. Dad?
Your mother is dead! Don't you understand that?
We thought that Gerard must have had the patches put on his back at about 2:30 a.m. because you all reported that you heard him snoring until at least 3. And we thought that the snoring meant that he was still alive, whereas in fact, it was a tape recording, run and rerun for hours. Wasn't it, Alice? Every time Rick saw you on the balcony, you were recueing the tape you'd made, weren't you?
I was nothing to him. Nobody. Well, you saw what he was like. All my life, I tried to get approval from my father, but it was no use. I envied you. All of you.
Alice, your father hated all of us.
At least he saw you. You existed.
What happened that night?
He told lies about Dr. Stark. He said he was engaged to be married, and he knew how much that would hurt me, but he didn't care. I just couldn't stand it any longer. The idea of being stuck in this house, spending years playing servant to him, putting up with his temper and his stupid, cruel games, his snoring. I went and got the nicotine patches and put them on his back. He just lay there, drunk. I thought they might be slow to work, but I knew no one would go near him as long as they thought he was still asleep. I remembered Rick recording his father snoring. That gave me the idea. I went into Dad's room, recorded his snoring, went back to my room, and replayed the tape over and over so that everyone would think he was still alive.
And how long did you do that for?
Hours. I didn't know how long it would take to work. I didn't know if it would work at all. But when I went in the morning, there he was. Dead. I only did what everyone else was too scared to do.
And Madeline, why did you kill Madeline?
She was acting strange ever since you asked about the tapes. I thought she'd guessed and was going to tell everyone it was me.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah, it went on every night at the same time for weeks. Strange whispering. We all heard it. I'm not kidding. It was like, help me. So scared we couldn't go to the toilet. So one night, my flatmate waits up to record it, right? This is the weird part. There was nothing on that tape.
Oh, nothing. Gee, that's a surprise.
Hang on a minute. I mean, there was nothing there. No traffic noise, no cats fighting in the yard. Not even the test he made to check the equipment was working. Nothing except this high-pitched human wailing sound.
Gee, that's what I call spooky
Yeah,
stuff.
just hang on. Explain that, Fisk. Explain that.
Hayden, it would be an absolute pleasure to explain that. Now, putting aside the obvious human incompetence just for 1
This
minute,
guy was a sound engineer.
the tape could have been exposed to a magnetic field.
Magnetic field.
It was in their flat.
A refrigerator emits a magnetic field, as do high-quality speakers, both of which have nothing to do with ghostly apparitions.
So, you don't believe in an afterlife?
Imogen, no.
Well, what do you believe in?
I believe it's your turn to bar the drinks, Constable.
Sergeant, when you die, you won't come back to haunt me, will you?
Oh, yeah. What makes you think that I'll die first, Constable?
Just a hunch.